Nam Sankirtan Yagya Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschata Desatarine. So we're reading from the Transcendental Diary by Harisauri Prabhu. We're in Sri Vrindavan Dham, September 16, 1976. I'm still too weak to do Srila Prabhupada's massage. Although I don't feel any real illness and I can attend all the temple functions, I simply have no strength. So this is Harisauri Prabhu speaking, that he is feeling ill and he is not able to massage. And he continues. The verse for the morning's class mentioned the Brahmastra, the Vedic equivalent to a nuclear weapon. Srila Prabhupada explained, now they do not know how to counteract this nuclear weapon. Formerly they knew. I throw one kind of weapon, and if you are expert, you can counteract it. Now they have discovered the nuclear weapon, but they have not yet discovered the counteraction. Fight means I show some expert fighting craft. The opposite party must also show something better than that. That was fighting. And in this way, when one party fails, he is killed. And if he is killed, then the war stops. No more war. That was the system. Prabhupada's perspective on contemporary world history is not always what the Western, nor even many Indian historians present. So far, of course, I know that this nuclear weapon was already discovered by the German people, and Hitler, it is said, he did not use it because he knew that if I throw this nuclear weapon, this will be devastation. So from this point, it can be considered that he had some human consideration. So he is advertised very adversely, but it is a true fact then how he could have this human consideration that he did not throw the nuclear weapon. And this was taken by the Americans and it was thrown in Japan. That is the history so far we know. So anyway, as we have got experience, the nuclear weapon is very, very dangerous. Similarly, Brahmastra is also very dangerous. He went on to describe how Vedic warfare was conducted by mantra, a subtle art now lost. He said modern warfare is conducted on the level of the gross senses, but mantra warfare is unknown. Merely by a sound vibration, an arrow was released that could track down its target wherever it may be. Even nowadays, he said that mantra is powerful enough to counteract snake bites. Chanakya Pandit said that mantraushadi vasha sarpaha. Sarpa means snake. It can be brought under control by mantra and herbs. Still in our Mayapur, some Muhammadans, they know how to use these herbs and mantras for treating snake bites. In Mayapur there are many snakes and occasionally snake bite cases are there. But they treat it and mantra has got power. It has been seen by many medical men in Lucknow. Speaking about the power of sound naturally led him speak of the ultimate mantra, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. If on the material platform, mental platform, the mantra can act so wonderfully, how much spiritually mantra can benefit you. You have to simply imagine. So this Hare Krishna mantra is completely spiritual. If you can chant it, spiritually enlivened, then surely it will act. Param Vijayate Sri Krishna Sankirtanam. It will act. Therefore, chanting is so important. There is no difference between Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and His holy name, Krishna. It requires good brain to understand how Krishna can appear in a form which can be seen by us. Krishna can appear in a form of sound which we can hear. It is for our benefit. You should immediately see that the Sankirtan, Hare Krishna, is Krishna and Radha, Hara and Krishna, Radha Krishna, or Sitaram, or Lakshmi Narayan, or any form of the Lord Vishnu. Hare Krishna means the Supreme Lord and His spiritual potency. So we address Hare, oh the energy, spiritual energy of the Lord, and Krishna, oh the Supreme Lord. Hare Rama, the same thing. So what is the meaning of addressing Hey Krishna, Hey Radhe, Hey Rama? Why? That just engage me in your service. Hare Krishna. So, yes, Srila Prabhupada explains the power of a mantra, and Prabhu writes that naturally it led him to explain about the Maha Mantra. So he is explaining how the Maha Mantra is non-different from Krishna himself, and also he gives the meaning of the mantra to engage. Please, just engage me in your service. So we hear Hare Krishna. We hear the importance of chanting a lot, and like Devaki Mataji, she also gives seminar on how to chant. So we are very fortunate to get reminded on what the mood of chanting should be. And I was just reading one text by Mahatma Prabhu. So he was sharing that actually the Maha Mantra is all powerful, but just like the deities, if you can realize that Krishna is non-different from the deities, then you get purified when you worship the deities. So similarly, when you realize, when you are conscious of the fact that Krishna is not different from the holy names, then Krishna is more present, more in the holy names. So when you are chanting, when you are conscious of the meaning of the mantra, then that is more powerful. So and in the previous paragraphs, I was thinking that about the nuclear weapon. So previously, at least until the World War II, they used to have battlefields. Now they don't have battlefields anymore. It's all from the air. You throw something, and even the common people who are not engaged in any warfare, they are also killed. But previously people would fight, but only on the battlefields. And on the battlefields you fight, and if you win on the battlefield, then you win the battle, and there is no more fight after that. So that was the norm of war, at least, even until recent times. But now it's completely not absurd what people do in the name of killing, even innocent people. So at least that's what we read today from the Transcendental Diary. So we can move on to Srimad Bhagavatam. This is chapter 15, text 4. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskrityam Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudiraid Nasta Prayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Sloke Bhakti Bhavtinayastaki. Text 4. Yatha dhana suvaidhana bhavanti na bhavanti cha evam bhutani bhuteshu choditani shamayaya. Yatha dhana suvaidhana bhavanti na bhavanti cha evam bhutani bhuteshu choditani shamayaya. Yatha dhana suvaidhana bhavanti na bhavanti cha evam bhutani bhuteshu choditani shamayaya. Yatha suvaidhana bhavanti na bhavanti cha evam bhutani bhuteshu choditani samayaya.
Yatha dhana suvaidhana bhavanti na bhavanti cha evam bhutani bhuteshu choditani shamayaya. Yatha dhana suvaidhana bhavanti na bhavanti cha evam bhutani bhuteshu choditani samayaya. Yatha dhana suvaidhana bhavanti na bhavanti cha evam bhutani bhuteshu choditani shamayaya. Word for word. Yatha, just as. Dhana su, seeds of paddy. Vai, indeed. Dhanaha,
grains, bhavanti, are generated. Na, not. Bhavanti, are generated. Cha, also. Evam, in this way. Bhutani, the living entities. Bhuteshu, in other living entities. Choditani, impelled. Ishamayaya, by the potency or power of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. When seeds are sown in the ground, they sometimes grow into plants and sometimes do not. Sometimes the ground is not fertile and the sowing of seeds is unproductive. Similarly, sometimes a prospective father, being impelled by the potency of the Supreme Lord, can beget a child, but sometimes conception does not take place. Therefore, one should not lament over the artificial relationship of parenthood, which is ultimately controlled by the Supreme Lord. Purport. Maharaj Chitraketu was actually not destined to get a son. Therefore, although he married hundreds and thousands of wives, all of them proved barren, and he could not beget even one child. When Angira Rishi came to see the king requested the great sage to enable him to have at least one son. Because of the blessings of Angira Rishi, a child was sent by the grace of Maya, but the child was not to live for long. Therefore, in the beginning, Angira Rishi told the king that he would beget a child who would cause jubilation and lamentation. King Chitraketu was not destined to get a child by providence or the will of the Supreme. Just as sterile grain cannot produce more grain, a sterile person, by the will of the Supreme Lord, cannot beget a child. Sometimes a child is born even to an impotent father and a sterile mother, and sometimes a potent father and fertile mother are childless. Indeed, sometimes a child is born despite contraceptive methods, and therefore the parents kill the child in the womb. In the present age, killing children in the womb has become a common practice. Why? When contraceptive methods are taken, why don't they act? Why is a child sometimes produced so that the father and mother have to kill it in the womb? We must conclude that our arrangement of so-called scientific knowledge cannot determine what will take place. What is enacted actually depends on the Supreme Will. It is by the Supreme Will that we are situated in certain conditions in terms of family, community, and personality. These are all arrangements of the Supreme Lord according to our desires under the spell of Maya, illusion. In devotional service, therefore, one should not desire anything, since everything depends on the Supreme Personality of Godhead, as stated in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu 1.1.11. Anya bilashita sunyam jnana karmadi anavritam anukulyena krishnano shilanam bhaktir uttama. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. That is called pure devotional service. One should act only to develop Krishna consciousness. For everything else, one should fully depend upon the Supreme Person. We should not create plans that will ultimately make us frustrated. Om Ajnana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya
Chakshurunmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Sri Chaitanya Manovistam Stapitam yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamaham Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamascha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadbhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Visakhan Vitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanusute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhuvya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I think Sukadev Goswami is speaking. This is the beginning of the 15th chapter. So I think we know the story of Chitraketu. He wants a son, and Angira Muni comes and blesses one of his wife to have a son, but also tells him that this son will be the cause of your happiness and also the cause of your distress. And the co-wives, one of the co-wives are envious. They poison the child, so the child dies. I'll just read the one or two slokas before as well. Sri Sukadeva Goswami said, while King Chitraketu, overcome by lamentation, lay like a dead body at the side of the dead body of his son, the two great sages Narad and Angira instructed him about spiritual consciousness as follows. Okay, so this is Narad and Angira Muni speaking. And verse 4 is the same thing. So verse 2 says, O king, what relationship does the dead body for which you lament have with you? And what relationship do you have with him? You may say that you are now related as father and son, but do you think this relationship existed before? Does it truly exist now? Will it continue in the future? Text 3. O king, as small particles of sand sometimes come together and sometimes separated due to the force of the waves, the living entities who have accepted material bodies sometimes come together and sometimes separated by the force of time. So in the text 4, it says, when seeds are sown in the ground, they sometimes grow into plants and sometimes do not. Sometimes the ground is not fertile and the sowing of the seeds is unproductive. Similarly, sometimes a prospective father, being impelled by the potency of the Supreme Lord, can beget a child, but sometimes conception does not take place. Therefore, one should not lament over the artificial relationship of parenthood, which is ultimately controlled by the Supreme Lord. So I remember when I was small, we would go to our village and then we would eat some oranges and we would throw the seeds just on the garden, and somehow some of the seeds would grow into a plant just like that, but some of the seeds they would just not grow. So ultimately, here it's being explained that ultimately it's the sanction of the Supreme Lord should be there. We may do our action, we may have the karma, but if there is something is not sanctioned by the Supreme Lord, it does not happen. So Prabhupada writes in the purport that Chitraketu was actually not destined to get a son. Therefore, although he married hundreds and thousands of wives, all of them proved barren, and he could not beget even one child. So if one is not destined to have something, then whatever effort you may put in, the result won't be there. So, and I was talking to one Jewish person on Saturday, and he was asking about what do you have, what kind of concept do you have for destiny? And I was just sharing that your past karma creates your future destiny, and if something is not destined to happen, so we all have certain amount of happiness and certain amount of suffering that we have to go through. And some person, they may work very hard, but if is not destined, then the person won't get the result. For example, we can see that some people try so hard for acquiring some business, but if the person does not have that karma, then the person won't be successful. But sometimes we see that someone does not work so hard, and people say they just get lucky and they somehow get the result. I was once talking to some people, and most of them were businessmen, and one of them was asking, do you know what is the most important thing? What is that makes a business successful? And everyone was, the young guys, they were just sharing, the commitment or discipline. And all the older guys, they said, you need to have luck. So if you're lucky, you will make it. So they were sharing that not just determination or action, but if lucky, in our case, we understand that it is destiny. If someone is not destined, then it doesn't work out. So many people just go bankrupt trying to start a business. It is said there are so many startups in the world, but most of them they are not successful. Although they may have the perfect CEO, they may have the perfect environment, somehow if it's not sanctioned, then it's not successful. So in this case also, Chitraketu, he was not destined to get a son. And when Angira Rishi came to see the king requested the great sage to enable him to have at least one son. Because of the blessings of Angira Rishi, a child was sent by the grace of Maya, but the child was not to live for long. Therefore, in the beginning, Angira Rishi told the king that he would beget a child who would cause jubilation and lamentation. I was thinking anything in this world will also follow the same pattern, that it may be the cause of your happiness for some time, but it will also be the cause of your sorrow. So nothing in this world will come just with happiness. There is the other side also, so someone compared it to a rose, or a rose flower. When you pick a rose, then you also have thorns there. So you can enjoy the rose flower, but then you'll also get some wound while you pick it. So, and it's interesting that although he was not destined to get a son, because of the Rishi's blessing, he could get something. So it seems that the saintly people, they are able to change your karma to some extent. And King Chitraketu, he was not destined to get a child by providence or the will of the Supreme. Just as a sterile grain cannot produce more grain, sterile person by the will of the Supreme Lord cannot beget a child. So Prabhupada is giving example that even if people sometimes they use contraception, somehow the child is born. So what is destined to happen will happen. That's the example he is giving. He also points out that in the present age, killing children in the womb has become a common practice. So there is a point where Prabhupada says the way to control population is not to have if you don't want to have child, then just don't have sex. That was his simple way of saying you don't need to artificially control birth by contraception. If you don't want child, just don't have sex. So he points out, of course, that all this is very artificial. It's not so basically you are just taking the pleasure, but you are not taking the responsibility, and that is a sign of a demoniac tendency. When you just want the pleasure, but you don't want to take the responsibility. So so the Vedic system is designed in a way that if you want some pleasure, then you also have to take some responsibility so that you get purified of your tendency to enjoy. So for example, you can have a child, but you take care of the child. You take the responsibility of the child. So if you want the pleasure of sex, then you have a child. And then when you take the responsibility, then it purifies you. So that's very important. But now we see that people just want pleasure, but they do not want to take the responsibility of the child. So that is why it's very degrading for anyone if they are just taking one-sided. Krishna provides both the sides. When Krishna designed the system, Krishna's system, he designed it in such a way that you also get purified by following the varnashram system of getting a family, of having children. But when you are just one-sided, then you become more animalistic. So that's important. And of course there is the question of people killing the children in the womb, which is another very demoniac tendency. Of course they say that the womb, the child in the womb is not actually alive. They just give it the name like it's a fetus or some kind of just some lump of matter. But from the Srimad Bhagavatam we understand that the child is alive. I mean, as soon as the ovum and the sperm mate, then the soul is present there. So it's alive. So when it's the if we change the way we look from Srimad Bhagavatam, then we can understand what this thing actually is. Like, I mean, from the Srimad Bhagavatam we understand that it's not just alive after it comes out of from the child comes from the womb. It's alive before. and killing it is actually killing the child. It's not just matter, it's actually a living entity in the womb. So he points later that it is by the supreme will that we are situated in certain condition in terms of family, community and personality. So everything is ultimately controlled by the Supreme Lord. That is the verse. So everything from our birth, from the family we grow around, from the community, and even our personality is actually it is by the supreme will. So I mean, if everything is by chance, then we can ask the question, why is a person born in a very rich family and the other person is born in a very poor family? If everything is by chance, what is the reason? So the reason we understand it's because of the previous karma, that one gets a certain type of body, one gets a certain type of family, one gets a certain type of community. Right? These are all arrangements of the Supreme Lord according to our desires under the spell of Maya, illusion. So according to our desires, we get different types of bodies. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita, Antakale cha mam eva smaran muktva kalevaram yaprayati samadbhavam yati nastyatra samsaya yam yam vapi smaran bhavam tyajanti ante kalevaram. So whatever state one remembers at the time of death, that state he will attain without fail. So by one's desire, you get your future body. In devotional life, therefore, one should not desire anything, since everything depends on the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, in devotional service, pure devotional service, a devotee is only desiring to serve. That's his only desire. And that's Rupa Goswami points out in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu that there is no, what is pure devotional service is there is no motivation and it's not interrupted. There is no material motivation.
Speculation.
Huh?
And philosophical speculation.
Yeah. Here it's Anya Bilashita Sunyam Jnana Karmai Navritam Anukulyana Krishna Anushilanam Bhakti Ruttamam. One should render transcendental loving service to the Supreme Lord Krishna favorably and without desire for material profit or gain through fruitive activities or philosophical speculation. I was thinking about another verse. Anukulyana. Anyway. So this is Krishna consciousness. Sorry? Vishi Sarva Upadi. Yeah, maybe. Ratin Nirmalam Rishikena Rishikesh. So that is Krishna consciousness is like for everything else, Prabhupada writes here, one should fully depend on the Supreme Person. So our only duty, if we really look at it, is to try to practice pure devotional service, and everything else we should fully depend on the Supreme Lord. So that is very significant, I think. We should not create plans that will ultimately make us frustrated. Right? So in this case, Chitraketu, he had a big plan that he will be happy once he gets his son. But just like we see in his life, if we make a plan for our pleasure, then ultimately it will lead to frustration. But if the plan is to please Krishna and his devotees, then that plan will always, that plan will not make us frustrated. That is the only plan that will not make us frustrated. Every other plan will result in frustration. Right? So, and it can be the co-wives here, they poison the child. So in our material endeavor also, when we make plans, okay, I will do this and I will get enjoyment after this, when I get this, then I will be happy. So we can make these plans, and the material energy may also fulfill it. But there will always be some problems, like the co-wives. There will always be people who will be envious, and you'll never be able to satisfy everyone. So the best intelligent way is to just make plans to serve Krishna and the devotees. I think that's the most intelligent way of living in this material world, because the Bhagavatam keeps giving us stories of so many devotees and so many like here Chitraketu and so many other personalities who made so many elaborate plans that they will one day go and enjoy, and but it all becomes it all leads to frustration. Like Gajendra, the king of elephants, he was also very opulent. He had so many wives, so to say, and he's enjoying in the heavenly planets. He's going for a nice dip in the river, and he's thinking, oh, everything is absolutely fine. But just when we think everything is absolutely fine, then the material world can just create some disturbance. Like the crocodile came and it was just hanging on to the legs of Gajendra. So many stories in the Bhagavatam to teach us that the material world, we cannot make, our plans will never be successful. Our plans for material happiness will always lead to frustration. And so that is why we can get reminded with these stories that pure devotional service or Krishna consciousness is the only way out. And Einstein, he famously said that the only way out is to go through it. So in this material world, the only way out is to go through Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, we become bewildered with so many elements that disturb us, especially our mind and our senses get dragged away by so many elements. So much of fear, so much of anxiety. I was thinking, I don't like to fly so much. And when I'm flying, I'm quite afraid, because once I was in a big earthquake and the after that, whenever I fly, I remember that, and I can't. I don't like it. So I was thinking, anything. When I'm flying, I'm remembering Krishna quite a lot. So if we want to get rid of fear, then we remember Krishna's lotus feet, and we remember that He will protect us, He will guide us, and ultimately death is also a form of Krishna. There was one devotee who was asking Prabhupada, if a war happens and the nuclear weapon comes to us, what should we do? And Prabhupada just said, we will look at the bomb and we'll say, here comes Krishna. So as devotees, we depend on Krishna for everything, and even if there is death, I think Brahmananda Prabhu, he was flying once with Prabhupada, and the plane just fell down for 10 seconds, quite few thousands of feet. Everyone was shouting like anything, and I think Brahmananda Prabhu, he was also very afraid. He looked at Prabhupada. Prabhupada was not shaken at all. He just said, we can die at any time. We just depend on Krishna. So that's all I wanted to share. If you have anything you'd like to share. Yeah.
Question. Sometimes it's not so easy to really see what is destined to happen, you know, and sometimes the destiny may be that we are meant to endeavor, and the success comes only much later. I mean, even looking at Prabhupada, you know, he could have so easily given up and said, oh, well, it's not meant to happen. I mean, he was even already looking at the ship going back, you know, asking when the Jaladuta would go back again. So he was endeavoring for so a long time, and it just seemed like everything was against it and so on. So, you know, and same thing maybe there in our lives too. So how to actually see what is the destiny, you know, whether we are meant to endeavor or whether it's over endeavor. Sometimes difficult to see.
Yeah.
So what's your response?
Yeah, I think that's how I see it is, as if my Krishna consciousness is not affected, as at the point where my sadhana is affected, then that starts becoming over endeavor. When my let's say when my main duty of doing what I'm supposed to do, maybe my duty for now is following the instructions of my spiritual master of chanting properly and following the regulatory principles, and maybe other basic duties of mine that I'm supposed to do. If that is affected, then I would see that as over endeavor for me. And until then, if I endeavor, if that does not affect my prime duties that I'm supposed to do every day, then that endeavor would make sense, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes, you know, we may, the mind gets occupied and so on. Just, I can't remember, just recently somebody told me the story where one of Prabhupada's disciples was traveling with him on the way out to Vrindavan, and Prabhupada was very silent, and the devotee was speculating, oh, what's Prabhupada thinking? He's on the way to Vrindavan, now driving in the taxi. And then after a long time, Prabhupada was simply saying, cement. We need cement. You know, he was planning the construction of Krishna Balaram Mandir. You know, and after several hours of not saying anything, he said cement. You know, so, and then the devotee was completely shocked. You know, thinking, oh, I thought, you know, he's in some transcendental samadhi here. What's he thinking about? Cement. Yeah, so that may also change. And I remember hearing another story where Prabhupada said, that was in regards to the Juhu project, where one devotee said to Prabhupada, oh Prabhupada, I find it so difficult to chant Hare Krishna. All I'm thinking is of bricks. And Prabhupada said, I have the same problem. So it's affecting the sadhana, you could say. Right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, also there's always guidance there, you know, we should ask for guidance in the devotees. Mentors.
Yeah.
But even there, may also be different visions and angles to things. You know? So, not so easy.
Yeah.
But also one thing I wanted to add, you know, like often we make plans and then Krishna makes completely different plans. And then often I come across where devotees say, oh, I've given up making plans because Krishna's plans are different anyway. But I think this would be the wrong conclusion. I think we have to make plans and simply not be attached and always be ready to adjust our plans to Krishna's plans, rather than not making any plans. You know, I think that's the wrong conclusion. And I come across this quite often that devotees say, oh, and I ask them, so what's your plan? Oh, I simply see what Krishna's plan is. But no, then we may not see, you know, so we have to make plans, but we have to be ready to always adjust our plans to Krishna's plan, rather than not making plans.
Thank you. Yes.
Thank you very much for your lecture, and thank you so much. Thanks for the question. So it's so nice, so practical. Yes. So.
Sorry.
It's really very practical. What Mataji said. It's so understandable. Very understandable. Yes. And Sri Prabhupada said that material world is tapasya. I don't know exactly if he meant devotees or karmis or all together, but that is really tapasya. That's why we're thinking of bricks here in Sacisuta, because to get out of this tapasya we're doing practical. So do something practical, please. But my question is about Anukulyana. Because Anukulyana, the first part, is different from the second part. Yes? Anya Vilashita Shunyam Gyana Karma Anuritam. Yes, that is one part. And then Anukulyana Krishna Shravanam Bhakti Uttama. The question is, what level is it? According to these 9 levels of devotional service, from Shraddha Sangha on to Krishna Prema. How can I, and maybe I was learning it, I have some, maybe I have forgotten because I can open the book and I asked you what you can answer. That is one level or something mixed here, because the first part is about the matras, maybe, and the second part is Anukulyana Krishna, and what is it? Also, what level? It is not Prema, but what is it? It is Nitya. Nitya? Or what? First, Krishna, no following the charities, what you can say about
Well, Srila Prabhupada does say that you worship Krishna, you remember Krishna, but he gives example of favorable and something that's favorable like the devotees and not very favorable like Kamsa. And devotional service, Prahlad Maharaj says the 9 process of devotional service starts with Shraddha and Sadhu Sangha, Bhajan, Kriya. So this is devotional service. These are the 9 process of devotional service. That's how we execute devotional service.
Yes, but the question is what level is Anukulyana Krishna? What level is, because every shloka, so it is different stage. It is some stage, it is not just somewhere in the ear. What can you say about this? If you can answer, if not, you can say.
I don't know. I think all the steps are favorable. All the
favorable,
yeah, they are all favorable.
Because we have here service to devotees, and we have here service to Krishna, and we have here all the sanatras, and we have here following the acharyas. That's why I did it.
Like you start with Shraddha and then you take association of devotees and you start some regulated practice. These are all favorable. I don't think there is anything that's not favorable in these 9 process. Yeah.
I would understand it more that it is the internal mood of service, that we serve wanting to please, it's more internal and subtle, the service attitude, that it should be favorable, that we want to please.
Also die wohlgesinnte Haltung
Ja.
kann man von Anfang an eigentlich schon haben, wenn man im vorigen Leben schon fortgeschritten war. Aber natürlich ist es auf dem Niveau schon, wo du gereinigt bist, nach Anarchanivalität kommt es erst wirklich zum Stande eigentlich. Ne?
It's internal work.
Service attitude, yeah. Yeah, Kavichandra Maharaj was saying, Prabhupada, so many times he was referring to this attitude. The main thing is the attitude of the follower, service attitude. He was repeating it many times. This is the attitude of the attitude of service. Yeah.
Yeah, because that's when we express that loyalty, that greed for Krishna, that we really serve with heart and soul. I mean, that really cultivates bhakti, whereas if we just mechanically go through the process, okay, I'm done for cleaning the floor, okay, then that kind of mood doesn't cultivate bhakti actually. We have to really put heart and soul into our service, and that makes it favorable.
Yeah, thank you. Anything else, Prabhu? Would you like to add? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
I was thinking about what Mataji said about the plans. I don't know how right I could be. I personally think is when we make a plan about anything, it could be also influenced by Maya, and like we say in Hindi, socha hua kaam nahi hota. Whatever you think, that will never happen. You thought about something. I have been thinking to go to temple for some time. I live very close to Gauradesh. but I am not going to the temple.
Mm.
Yeah, and although this is a very auspicious thing, yeah, and there cannot be anything more bigger with a higher priority for me than going to a temple. But still, somehow this plan is not being executed. Yeah, and then I say I leave it to Krishna. Whatever is his plan, I'm just walking my path.
Mm.
And maybe some way or the other, if he will open a road for me for the darshan.
Mm.
And I have been traveling, and yesterday I thought I would come to temple, but then it was too late for me to close by 7. And suddenly somebody said, yeah, why don't you go tomorrow morning while you're going back to your home?
Mm.
And coincidentally, I was only thinking about going to home because it's like 5 hours to Kaiserslautern, and I'm only thinking about connections and everything. And a friend said, yeah, just go in the morning to the temple, and then immediately, yes, I could do that.
Mm.
And then I'm so happy that Krishna made me when I'm not expecting the least, and there are so many other plans. I know that my mind is constantly building up, but on top of that, I think sometimes we have to leave it to Krishna, and he will make a plan for. I don't know. I said to Krishna, I don't know how will this happen.
Mm.
Yeah, I leave it up to you.
Yeah.
I'm just going to walk. I'm just going to go through it, and maybe you will have a best plan for me.
Mm.
But if I think about executing that goal in my mind, I will end up only suffering.
Mm.
Might not. I don't know, Prabhu. I think maybe how correct I am, but just I think it that way.
Yeah, and Shrutakirti Prabhu, he shares one story where one devotee asked, how can I become Krishna conscious? And Srila Prabhupada, he just replied, desire. So I thought that was significant with what you were saying. You are just desiring also, even though you are not maybe making very big plans, but if we just desire and desire to serve, have this attitude to serve, then Krishna will fulfill that desire. He will make your plan successful, or he will plan something that you can fulfill this desire to serve him in some way.
Yeah, because otherwise, with that attitude, we can easily blame Krishna. Oh, well, Krishna didn't arrange it, so that's why I didn't go to the temple. So it's all Krishna. He didn't want me to go. He didn't make the plan. So no, we have to have the desire.
Yeah.
And then, as you said, Paramatma witnesses it and then makes the arrangements. But the desire has to be there, and also no harm to have a look at the trains and and actually make some steps. Not just I leave it up to Krishna. Can be a lazy way out.
It also can be something like maybe I'm too much into material world that Krishna is not making way for me to visit him and to get a darshan. So I have to also stop doing too much material things in my day-to-day life and invest more time in the service. Yeah. Or maybe someday I dream Srila Prabhupada in my dream, and then I'm like, I realize, oh no, what's wrong? I'm too much into maybe in material world. I should try to get back to in the association of the devotees, because in Germany it's very difficult, and in India, I mean, like it's very close by, every time you can just get an auto, and then you are like, I basically come from West Bengal, and there are devotees on the streets, and then they are like, and I'm going to location X, I change the direction, and then I go to temple. Yeah. But here it is, the Maya is very strong, and and it's very difficult. But you're right, Mataji. There has to be an absolute desire and decision to go to the temple. Then that's a half work done. Then.
Yeah, but I mean, often in our endeavors, we do see, when everything really naturally falls into place and develops, okay, then obviously it's Krishna's plan. But then sometimes, even if it doesn't immediately all manifest, still, maybe Krishna wants to see how determined we are. So we can't immediately give up just because there's some obstacle or something.
Yeah, maybe the way of growing us is like something is not happening. My mom still say, God doesn't want. It's not the right
Or
time.
maybe he wants.
Yeah.
He just wants to see how much you want. So I think guidance is the key, that we have to accept guidance from a mentor, somebody more experienced who is aloof and can see.
Yeah, that's quite important.
If possible, only one word. Sorry, that I'm sensing after you, because
you can say so many.
So first deserve and then desire.
First, sorry?
First deserve, number one, and then desire. In deserve there is wow. That's it.
Yeah.
Maybe it helps.
Thank you. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Gaura Bhakta Vrinda ki jai.